and welcome again to another one of our episodes in our OTP functionality series. In today's session, I want to kind of take us through the bridge and how we can kind of handle setup of that in the software. What does it do? And some best practices around it. So what the bridge mapping does is it allows us to set up some rules for automatically calculating certain items using the trial balance account. So it's mostly used for calculating pre-tax book income, permanent adjustments, temporary differences, and loading the trial balance. Now, this functionality is located in the administration area, and it is a variety of, it's in the manage bridge area. If you select bridge mappings, and right off the bat, you will not see the actual mapping. So you will have to select the component that you want. Now, if you notice, there are about 8 different mappings here. And the important thing to know when it comes to the bridge mapping is that what this functionality allows you to do is use your same load of a trial balance for a period and have it calculate a variety of different things. So each one is set up to hold its own rules. Now, how does the software do this? It basically does this by using a series of factors. So the factors allow you to put in a +1 or a -1 where needed. So for instance, if you are mapping your pre-tax book income or your PERMs, while the software requires you to load a column for a trial balance with a beginning balance, you don't need the beginning balance for your PERMs and your pre-tax book income. However, you will need your ending balance. So for PERMs, your beginning factor is typically 0, whereas for your timing, your temporary differences, what you are most likely going to want to do is take a flux in accounts. So it will require you to utilize the beginning and the ending trial balances. And we will do a 1 for beginning, -1 for ending. So the beauty of the map is that regardless of how your trial balance is set up, are you a true debit credit trial balance, or are you a natural sign trial balance? By using the factors, you can get the software to calculate the things that you need to automate accurately. So as you will see from my screen, and we can kind of take a look at this in the software as well, is that typically you're going to bring in, when you're adding anything, it requires a unit code. It requires a general ledger account, a type, and some kind of component code along with the beginning factor. You will also notice that there are 2 other columns to the right called Flex 1 and Flex 2. And these are basically used. Flex 1 can represent like a cost center or a profit center. If you have an account that is booked that way, and maybe, let's say, for instance, you've got meals and entertainment in one account, but you have a piece that is 50% deductible, and you have a piece that's 100% non-deductible, but you have them booked into separate cost centers so that you can tell which is which. You could use your Flex 1 column to bring in that particular cost center. So as long as you have the data at that level of detail, you could use a Flex 1. And Flex 2 is kind of user defined, anything you want that to be. Sometimes we see it being used on the book income for designating local currency versus USD. So if you can get both your local currency trial balance and your USD trial balance in one file, you could use your Flex 2 to delineate that it's 2 separate things and load them at the same time. So one of the things I want to also point out is the utilization of wildcards. So this is really useful because we want to be efficient when we're setting up our bridge, and we want to set up our bridge so that it could be used for a variety of different entities. And we also want to make sure that when we are setting up the bridge, we're not having to do like specialized one-offs where it's not necessary. So to the extent that the same fact pattern applies across all units, you can use this asterisk as a wildcard. So you do not need to list each unit out to do it. Alternatively, you will notice here this this area that I have highlighted that says a 6 and an asterisk. This is actually one of my loads for pre-tax book income. So what this is saying is for every account that comes in that starts with a 6, this is how we're going to treat it. We're going to take the ending balance and multiply it by -1. So you don't have to list, let's say you've got 50 different 6 series accounts. You do not have to list all 50 different accounts. And the benefit is that going forward, if you add a new 6 series account that needs to be calculated where you're calculating pre-tax book income, you do not have to make any changes to your bridge mapping file. It will automatically get captured. Okay, so I want to kind of jump into my bridge mapping file here. So this is an export of the bridge map file. It can be found here. Once you've selected a component, the screen will be activated and you can export the bridge map out. This is also where you will come to import. Now, very, very important. The bridge map is a set of rules as of a point in time. So if you need to make changes to your bridge mapping, you should export the bridge map file out, add your changes to, so if you're adding new accounts, add the new accounts to the existing map and reload everything back in. Because when you are importing the bridge map in, it tells you that it will overwrite the old bridge map. So it is going to wipe everything out that you had previously and replace it with the new file that you are loading. So it's very important that if you are adding new things to the map, that you load everything back in, because unlike when you're adding things to the regular temporary differences or the data entry portion, or even importing other category items, it's additive. So you could add 2 lines and just load a file with just 2 lines if you want to, but the bridge map does not work that way. So let's go back to our file. What I want to show you is I actually have the pre-tax book income as an example. And as you can see, let's just take a look at, I'll just look at the USD. So this one requires you to state if it's local currency or USD. For all of the other maps, perms and temps, etc., the assumption is that it is going to be in local currency. So if you bring in your units, it's going to take, when it comes in, it'll take all units. We're not doing anything with FlexField 1 and 2 here. And we are going up to the highest level of the accounts, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But you'll notice on both the local currency and the USD, I have these 2 lines that are 88 star highlighted. And the reason those are highlighted is because those 2 lines are exceptions. So we wanted to load all of our 8 series accounts with a factor of -1. But for all accounts starting with 88, we don't want them to be included in our calculation of pre-tax book income. So where this may sometimes come in is if you have, let's say you've got tax accounts that are kind of buried within another series of accounts. They don't hold in their own accounts. So for instance, some clients may have like all of their 7 series are their tax accounts. So we would not even include the 7 series in here. We could leave it out or we could have it with a factor of 0. But if you've got accounts that are mixed, then you may need to exclude certain things from the calculation. So this is what we're doing. We're saying bring in all 8 series accounts, but for anything starting with 88, we want a factor of 0 applied. Now, something that's a little tricky about the bridge import, unlike other types of data import in OneSource tax provision, most other import templates read from the top down. The bridge import does not. So if you want to put exceptions in, you put your exceptions above the main line. Because what will happen is the system is going to read from the bottom when it loads, when you load your file, and it's going to apply -1 to all of your 8 series accounts. Then when it hits the 8 accounts, it's going to replace the -1 with a 0. If you flip it the other way, you will see that what happens is if you load your data, it's going to pull the 8 and the 0 is going to get overridden by the -1. So you will get incorrect results. But these are things that when you are testing, you are looking to make sure that your calcs are working correctly. So another thing with bridge mapping is it's not included in this area. There's a separate thing called unit mapping. So this functionality is used where you've got, let's say, maybe multiple units on your trial balance. Let's say they are branches or just kind of offsite accounts or companies that you have that roll up into one. This is the area that you could use to kind of map those items as well. And you would simply put what the individual legacy unit code is and map that to the unit code that is within OneSource tax provision. So that also is one of the items that gets exported out, is this bridge unit map. Now to get to it, this screen does not show up automatically. So you would have to go into systems, into the manage configurations area, select advanced functionality and go to bridge. And you can activate the unit mapping screen. Now, while we're on this screen, a few other things to note. There are some other radio buttons around bridging itself. So these govern the level at which you will be able to load a trial balance file when you bring it in. Do you want to allow loading for the single unit? Do you want to allow it for the sub-consolidation level? And do you want to allow it for the full consolidation level? So you will have to check these buttons when you do your initial setup. So let's go take a look. Let's pop back in. I just kind of wanted to show you here what some sample import files will look like. If you are doing a 4-columnar file on the left or a 6-columnar file, you'll notice the setup is a little bit different. So 4-columnar, all you need is the unit code, GL account code, beginning balance, ending balance. Whereas the 6-columnar file kind of drops those extra 2 columns in between the unit code and the GL account code. So very important to know that the format is a little bit different there. Also, when you are creating these files, the files can be set up. You can either do like Excel and save the file as a comma separated file, or you could do a tab delimited file. Let's say you just copy and paste into Notebook or something of that nature, and then you can load it. Important things to note is that you cannot have any blank lines, because if you import the file, once it gets to a blank line, it stops. It assumes that's the end of your file. So you can't have any blank lines. And you also cannot have any commas or parentheses. So typically, if you're like saving the file as CSV, you should use the general format in Excel to create the file. All right, so let's go into the import area just so you can see where that is. So at your data set level, you'd select import and bridge import. And the beauty about it is because you set up different types of rules, you will notice that you can choose to load all components at the same time, or you can select just specific. So it means that if you're going through, a lot of times clients will load all things on the first pass. They want to load their pre-tax book income. They want to load their trial balances, their perms, their temps. But then maybe in some later iteration, maybe just the pre-tax book income changed, and that's the only thing they will want to load. Or maybe they need to load, maybe pre-tax book income and temps again. And then you can just cherry pick what it is that you want to load. So you pick what you want to load, select next. choose your class and your subclass for loading. And then this is a report level that I was talking about that we selected on the radio buttons, because that dictates what you're able to see here. And as with anything else in OneSource, if you select consolidated, there's no further selection to be made. But if you choose unit or sub-consolidation, you're going to have to make a selection of what unit or sub-consolidation it is that you want to do. Select next, and then browse for your file. And then this is where you're going to select the type of file format it is, whether it is comma delimited or tab, if it's 4-column or 6-column. Once you select that, you'll browse for your file, drag it here or browse for your file, and then you click submit. Now, when the file posts, you will come into your jobs area and you can search for import, bridge import file. And this one is a little bit different from others. So the log I find is not really useful for the bridge import. It just kind of tells you that it zeroed out records, etc. But what you really want to pay attention to is this preview. So you'll have to choose the preview, and once it loads, then you can export it. So I've already exported one out. And this particular one, the only thing that was loaded was temporary differences. If you load all of your components, it will all show up on this one sheet. It's automatically set up for filtering, so you could filter down to the individual items that you want. But it will tell you for everything that was in your trial balance file that you loaded, the unit, it will tell you the adjustment that got calculated, what the account code was, the adjustment type. It will give you the beginning balance that existed along with the ending balance. And it will tell you the factors that it's using to calculate. And these will be the factors that you set up within the mapping. So if I go back to the mapping and we were looking at temp differences, you will see T031 minus 1, etc. So it will give you all of that when you look at the map. And this is kind of where you want to do your validation to make sure that things are calculating correctly. And over here is actually showing you the calculation that it's making. So we've got the calculated value. And because both of these items are for T015, you will also see to the right of the first iteration of the activity a sum. So this $100 is representative of the sum of those two line items. There are a couple other tabs in here that are designed to kind of like give you your error, right? So if you have got sublines, this has to do with your trial balance. So what this tells me is that we potentially had accounts that were also within that did not come in. If we've got missing bridge assignments, this time sometimes can be a little bit confusing, and it will bring in accounts. For instance, let's say you said you wanted to bring in the permanent difference accounts, but because within the file that you loaded, you also have balance sheet accounts that don't have anything to do with the perm, they're all going to fall out here. Missing units will be indicative of units that are coming through your trial balance that are not set up within the software. Okay. All right, let's close out of there and just pop right back in to manage a bridge. For one last thing, so I want to just kind of go over book trial balance. So there is something here called unmapped, add unmapped sublines. So in another episode, I go through the meaning of the lines versus the sublines. But in essence, the sublines are your actual trial balance accounts. So what happens when you have brand new accounts coming in? you will need to get those into the map as well, into the bridge map, because unfortunately, this one is an area that really, we can use wildcards for the units, but you typically need to bring in all of your actual trial balance accounts. So if you have brand new accounts that you updated in your sublines, you can simply click add unmapped sublines, and it is going to bring it over here with a factor of 1. So then you could, if you know your accounts, you could easily, if they shouldn't be a factor of 1, search for them and just simply update the factor. That's it on bridge mapping. I know it's a lot, but this is actually an area that can be very useful to you in terms of adding some efficiency to your process and automating things that are tax sensitized. Look forward to seeing you on another episode.